Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. I want to make a quick announcement. Please find your seats. Food and beverage will be served throughout the entire event. Beverage is right over there. The bar is open, obviously. And food is at the back, and delicious food, and all treats that Kathleen loved. So help yourselves, make a plate. Feel free to move back and forth and around as we're going through the program. Also, silence your mobile devices, please. Always a tricky thing. So I'm just going to throw that out to you now. Silence your mobile devices. There's going to be some fun. We'll be laughing, but there'll be some quieter moments as well. So we don't want them interrupted by our fun little ringtones. So I'll give you another moment or two to just get settled, and then we will begin the program.
It's loud. I have a brief announcement myself as I turn my own phaser to stun. We have a guest of honor here sitting up front. Most of you cannot see him, so I'm going to hold him up. In fact, Earl, say hi to the camera. This is Earl Bear, and he was the support bear for Kathleen. So he has place of honor.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Earl. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many faces here. Michael and Mac wish me to welcome you all, and thank you for being here today. We're very grateful that you're all here to join us in this celebrating the life of the remarkable, the spectacular Kathleen Thompson. Yes. Today's celebration of Kathleen will feature tributes and commentary from some of her many dear friends and family members. We'll hear readings of several of her unbelievably wonderful poems, some beautiful music, and of course we'll enjoy some delicious food and drink. There's some yummy chocolate cake up there that a lovely lady made. I can tell you that. And we have a few other surprises for you. To begin, Michael wished me to let you know that a wonderful organization called Open Lands Tree Keepers, an ever-growing community of tree ambassadors that care for urban forests throughout Chicagoland, will be planting a tree in memory of Kathleen, which is fantastic. They're going to be hosting a community tree planting, a whole day of it at Walking Stick Woods on Wednesday, April 23rd. Walking Stick Woods is in the same complex as North Park Village Nature Center, which we love. The area is being cleared of buckthorn for the first time, yay. And it's being adopted by the team at the Nature Center. So Mike, friends, family, extended family, everybody, welcome to come and help plant that tree for Kathleen and do some other plantings as well. Great day it will be. Mike will no doubt have additional information for you that'll go out as we approach the event date. And another spectacular company of brilliant arborists, Bartlett Tree Experts, will also be planting a tree in Kathleen's memory. Now, to learn a little more about this, please welcome Scott Jameson.
Thanks. Very nice. Thank you so much. A lot of my tree friends here, we all know trees have tremendous benefits. And one of the things, though, that the greatest benefit is they bring people together. Oh, hi, Julie. And they brought Mike and I together years ago. That's how I first got to know Kathleen, was Mike and I doing tree stuff on the radio, and It's a Wonderful Life at our home and all that sort of thing. Kathleen also created these wonderful awards for the Midwest Ecological Landscape Association. I was actually honored to get one of those. The Polaris Award, I think, is what we called it. So she made those. So, but of all the benefits that trees do, they bring people together. One of the greatest things I think they do is honor people. And so that's what we're going to do. And I'm glad Tree Keepers is involved with their tree planting. I'm a longtime tree keeper. But Bartlett Tree Experts will, at a time and place of Mike's choosing and the tree that he thinks most represents Kathleen, we'll find a tree and we'll plant that for Mike. But I've seen that really embody people and allow somebody and people that love Kathleen to visit that tree and remember her through that living organism. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Scott. The relationships with the actors who will be reading Kathleen's
Can I
poem-
interrupt just for a second?
course,
And
of course.
I apologize.
Of course.
Because I found out just the other day that there's actually going to be one other tree planting in Kathleen's honor. So we
Wait a
got
minute. So there's going to be tree?
Ah,
Tree.
yeah, but and our friend Brian. Brian, where are you? He's in the back. He made this happen. And Mac, what's the name of the garden? Morse Circle Garden in Rogers Park. And has the tree been planted already? Not yet. Not yet. Okay. And you said you did know what kind it was, right?
Yes, a Japanese magnolia.
The Japanese magnolia. So it's going to be on the lake for those of you in the Rogers Park area. And I apologize for interrupting, Dan, but we had to give Brian his due because he's the guy who made this happen. So thank you, Brian.
Oh, man. Oh, that's great. Mike, pipe up anytime, please. This is you. Like to do a little number for you. We have some wonderful actors today reading some of Kathleen's beautiful poetry and powerful poetry. The relationships with the actors who will be reading Kathleen's poems go back as far as the days of the Commons Theater. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Just after the Globe Theater burned to the ground during a production of Henry VIII back in 1616 when the cannon caught the thatched roof, Mike and Kathleen and Judith Easton founded the Commons Theater. No, it was actually 1980. Kathleen was the resident playwright, but she pitched in constantly, as you do. And she and her cohorts built the sets, they swept the floors, they answered the phones, they ran the box office. Hi-ho, the glamorous life in the theater. Our first speaker today, after Scott, worked with Kathleen and Michael at the Commons. Please welcome to read two of Kathleen's poems, Kelly Nespor.
You can lower the mic a little bit if you need to.
I don't work with mics.
Oh, okay.
You know,
That's fine.
I will. Changeling. They were vigilant as other parents. She washed a cup and watched the child chase dust motes in a stream of light. The crib was placed an arm's reach from the bed in which they slept. Plump, soft, one dimpled hand curved, still against an unmarked cheek. Some motion there may have been at the window. The curtain may have shifted in the frame. The wind, perhaps. The cradle seemed to rock, the play of moonlight, maybe, on the polished wood. At dawn, the child woke, crying. Its eyes were bright now, quick and dark, and fretfully its thin legs twisted in the sheets. Its parents dressed it, fed it, watched it grow, and neither spoke the word or even said it. Changeling ever said it. Changeling never. Changeling said it in their sleep. Disaster relief. After the Great Fire, Robert Browning gave the city books so that people of Chicago would have something to read. Other people gave food or clothing or money to rebuild buildings. Browning gave books. So did Alfred Lord Tennyson and John Ruskin and Disraeli. But I especially like to think of Browning turning to Elizabeth at breakfast and saying, "Good Lord, Portuguese, the people in Chicago don't have any books. Got burned to a crisp, library and all." And Elizabeth certainly said, "Robert, that's terrible. Let's send them some of ours. We have so many." And they straightway packed a box or two and sent them on. The address said, "People who read, City of Chicago, United States of America, small world.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Before we proceed to Andra, quick announcement. There are some folks who have come in. They can't spot the seats in the room, but there are some house left and house right seats wide open, tons of them here. And if you would raise your hands if there's a free seat at your table, that would be great. And feel free to swoop on in, grab a seat, a chair. Don't grab a seat. That's very untoward. But getting more acceptable, I understand. Go figure. And it's now my pleasure to my great pleasure to introduce Kathleen's longtime friend and collaborator, Andra Medea. Ra.
So I'm Andra Medea, and I got to work with the spectacular Kathleen Thompson for 1,000 years. And, you know, like so many of us, we could just list off the different things that Kathleen did and founded and got started. First women's bookstore in Chicago, drop-off point for Jane, the underground abortion service. First lesbian writers conference, first modern book on rape, founding the Commons Theater, co-founded. This is the list. And Kathleen kind of did this all her life. And founding organizations is hard. Like, most people get to do one or two in a lifetime. And Kathleen just did one after another after another. And she made it look easy, which was so deceptive, because it's not easy. And I don't think many people had any idea what kind of price she paid for all of these things that she did, because she really believed in bringing good into the world, and she got that done. So I got to know her when she had just first started this bookstore in Chicago, little scrappy place, used books, coffee in the back, couple of chairs. I don't know if she sold any books. She must have sold something sometime. But anyone would wander in. So 1970s Halsted Street, there were some pretty interesting folks wandering in, and Kathleen would sit and talk. I was one of those peculiar people wandering in. I was this scrappy teenager from the South Side, scruffy thing, and did not have a dime to buy a book, but that didn't bother Kathleen at all. This was a world of ideas, and Kathleen wanted to talk. So Kathleen helped me think through the first conference here in Chicago on rape. And now that was where Kathleen did the TV interview. So out of nowhere, no warning, they put her in front of the TV and she aced it. She did so well, it got us a book contract. And this turned out to be the first feminist book on violence against women. So now, Kathleen helped me pull this off. Now, modern perspective, this seems absolutely incredible that there was ever a time when rape or domestic violence or dating violence was just not discussed. It was not a topic. You go to the library, there was nothing there. We thought this book would be easy, and quickly found out we had almost nothing to work with. No studies, no therapy protocols, no programs, no support groups, just this strange silence. So we had stumbled into something that was pretty ugly, and we walked into it, we had no idea. So often, we were the first people that many of these women ever talked to. And one of the hard things was finding out how common this kind of violence was. So since we had nothing to work with, Kathleen had the idea to put a questionnaire in the underground papers just to get back responses. And people did write in with their stories, and they were pretty appalling. Kathleen was the one who opened the mail. Now, you may have known that Kathleen had a thing about opening mail. Couldn't bear it. And it was from those letters. We both came away with PTSD. And this was before there was a name for PTSD, much less a treatment. Kathleen was the one who figured out that she had a grandfather with shell shock. And she realized that what we were going through was what her grandfather, she was the one who put those pieces together. So you keep functioning, keep writing. Book came out, Against Rape, made a big splash, national book tour, banned in South Africa. We were pleased, sure. Went through 5 printings before it ever launched. Excerpted in newspapers across the country. So that first book on violence against women helped start the conversation, which led to the programs, the protocols, the changes in the laws. All these things flowed from that kickstart. So we got to change the world. And not many people get to say that. Now, it cost, and in 50 years, I realized Kathleen never mentioned this topic to me again unless she was triggered. 50 years. So, but from there, we did more projects, dodged away from anything nasty or cruel. Wrote harebrained, wacky children's scripts for SRA. Jan, who somehow put up with us. We pulled in things under deadline, under insane numbers and pressures. Jan took us out to a very nice restaurant downtown where we beat each other with rubber chickens. This is true. And then we wrote Caught in the Act, Kathleen and I. Kathleen did both script, worked with me on the script, worked with Jan on the lyrics. Jan, who somehow gallantly produced this thing, I don't know how, all of us operating by the skin of our teeth. So, Caught in the Act, all women's musical comedy about 2 female jewel thieves in the 1920s, because who didn't need that, right? It was so much fun, a therapist prescribed it for her patients. We had people who came back every week for the run of the show. It really was a blast. So Jan and Kathleen did these lyrics that would have given Cole Porter a run. And I'm just going to do one from Rip Off the Rich Folk. I'm not going to try to sing, but. Rip off the rich folk, steal from the toffs, clean out their penthouse apartments while they're out playing golf. While they're making the croupiers smile, open their coffers and show all the scoffers that burglary too can have style. Rip off the rich folk, burgle their rubies and pearls, bamboozle barons and countesses, victimize viscounts and earls. Plunder and pilfer and purloin and liberate, ravage and rifle and rob. Pocket his watch when the gent condescends. Rip off the rich folk, but don't rob your friends. It's not classy to rob your friends. Okay? So it even had its moral. So, again, so raising money for a revival to this show, our cast sang Rip Off the Rich Folk for backers at a Gold Coast high-rise. Oddly, it didn't go well. So Kathleen just kept founding more things. Okay, of course, there's the Common Theater that she co-founded with Judith Easton and Michael. We built a 100-seat auditorium from scratch using scrap lumber from old shoe bins. Chief editor for the Encyclopedia for Black American Women, try to get that off the ground now. She did 2 appearances on Oprah, And then, of course, the environmental work, and that's not to count her art, which just really seemed to make her happier than anything, except maybe some of the lyrics. Kathleen was so much a part of my life for so many years. I don't particularly understand now that she's gone. And part of that is because I still have her voice in my head. Mostly she corrects my grammar. Okay. And she took a blue pencil to this elegy. She threw out whole chunks of it. But even now, when I think about taking on daunting things, I think about what Kathleen would say, which would be mostly, oh, rah, go out and do it. And I have her to thank for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andra. Ra is like the coolest nickname ever, by the way. Ra is a nickname. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Ellen Duncan Nugent, who will join us to present 2 more of Kathleen's powerful poems. And Judy, you'll be up next if you can hear me.
Thank you. I'll use the mic. Yes. Learning to live with ambiguity. I discovered one day a talent, timorous and suffering from a lack of self-esteem, for lying. I coaxed it from its dim-lit niche, sheltered it a moment from the glare of righteousness, steadied it. A moment of befuddlement, an instant of wild fear, and then it calmed. Its first notes were cracked, inaudible, even in the rests between integrity, the bass, and purity, a shrill descant. I petted it, however, flattered it. At length, it trilled with confidence. Never a part of the melody, it now provides a light embellishment, an airy, tinkling sound above the dull boom of truth. KT. Susan. She stepped onto the platform, whalebone stiff, shabby black with fine lace cuffs, her vanity. For a moment, she could not recall the town or who the meeting was, weary with words. At Albany, they would not let her speak. And now, not to speak, to sit unheard in the crowded hall, to rest, to be among the children with Elizabeth. They waited for her, always. They worked and waited. She closed her righteous eyes and spoke and fed their hearts with words. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Just beautiful. And it's actually going to be Kara next. Kara Johnson.
Okay,
next.
and I was just going to say.
Before Judy.
Before we move on, the audience will tell us who Susan was. Thank you very much. Okay.
And Elizabeth Taylor, right?
Exactly.
Elizabeth Taylor. By the way, what?
You haven't introduced yourself.
I haven't. My name is Dan. Dan Gately, old friend of Michael's, and Mike and I go way back, and Kathleen and I go almost as far back, and we perform together. We mention the name of the group. The Frozen Robins. A scintillating and spectacular vocal group of holiday carolers who gathered many companies under the banner of Mike's The Frozen Robins. And it's a consortium of about anywhere between 16 and 20 at a time singers, sopranos, altos, tenors, basses. We plug and play and we sing all through the holiday season.
And I will tell you where the name The Frozen Robins comes from. or for those of you theater people, remember the front page by Charles MacArthur and Ben Hecht. And Hildy, the editor, at one point screams at a reporter, "Don't just stand there like a frozen robin." And I was in a production of the play, and I realized that was the name of our group. So there you go.
I don't think I ever heard that story. That's funny. By the way, these beautiful poems, these powerful poems, Mike's hoping to publish them either on a Substack site or in a book or maybe both. He's been pouring through files, he tells me, has so far collected 84 of these miniature masterpieces, I think. And there are more pieces being discovered every day, along with short stories, murder mysteries, historical articles, all kinds of brilliant material. So he hopes to get this work to the public in some form. We'll all encourage that and help as much as we can, and watch this space, as Rachel would say, for further developments. And now, from the Newberry Library, please welcome Kara Johnson.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Johnson, and I know Kathleen and Mac from my work at the Newberry. When I agreed to share some brief remarks today, I didn't consider quite how difficult this would be, so I appreciate your patience. I was fine until I saw Earl Bear, but I know I'm in good company. If you ask somebody how to define history, someone probably wearing tweed might say it's the study of the past, or of change over time, or of the struggle between continuity and change, etc., etc. But I define history as the study of stories. It's also the study of stories that were once silenced, obscured, or deliberately hidden from the historical record or archive. Kathleen worked every day to use her talents to bring previously hidden or unknown stories to life. As a writing consultant for the Newberry's digital education website, alongside Mac, Kathleen used the Newberry's collections to highlight diverse stories of the past, ranging from oral histories and photographs of African American entrepreneurs starting and running successful family businesses during American Reconstruction, to Chicago area examples of blockbusting, redlining, and other forms of housing discrimination against African Americans, to oral histories of formerly enslaved peoples interviewed by the Federal Writers Project. Kathleen's most recent work for the Newberry was an essay called "These Are the Women Who Saved the Cities," which re-examines the Gilded Age Women's Club movement and the way women, mostly volunteers, stepped forward to provide life-saving services that helped counteract social upset caused by industrialization and urbanization in American cities. Throughout these projects, I identify common threads, like social justice, and highlighting the stories that had been, whether deliberately or not, marginalized in past decades or even centuries of historical scholarship. I had not only the privilege of having a collaborator in Kathleen, I also had the pleasure of becoming friends with her over these past 6 years or so, and I really wish I had more time with her. Kathleen provided a kind of mentorship I didn't expect to receive, and I turned to her as a model of a patient but persistent researcher and writer. At the same time, she had this wonderful way of just not giving a shit about the things not worth her time or energy. And I think she saw that in me too, which was inspiring and an important lesson I carry with me in my own journey today, both professionally and personally. An example of this was when we became Facebook friends, and I posted one of those silly personality quizzes. The one I'm referring to is a quiz on the top 100 characters in literature that align with your personality, and I'm sure it was very scientific. I ended up getting Beth March from Little Women. So does anyone know Beth March? What's kind of some qualities of hers that we remember? This is a very literary group, so I imagine we have some. Meek, yes. Very sweet. Okay, so I didn't just get Beth March a little bit, it was a whopping 92%. I posted the results feeling pretty okay about it. I mean, out of all the characters in the literary canon to be aligned with, Beth was pretty benign aside from the whole scarlet fever detail. I had to go back and find this quote from Kathleen on Facebook. Facebook be damned, but we still have this archive, which I'm very grateful for. I also realized this was in the height of the pandemic. This was her response to my post. Kara, I'm sorry, but I don't think you're Beth. You're sweet, but I don't think you're that sweet. I haven't known you for long, but I've seen more mischief and more edge from you than Beth ever had. And according to the quiz, I'm Joe, so I should know. We also bonded over things that were not at all related to work or literature, particularly antique jewelry. Her and Mike's market, little antique market stand, Strictly Hodgepodge, sold repurposed, handmade, and vintage jewelry, knickknacks, and books. Kathleen ran workshops on identifying jewelry, and what I always loved in those moments was that, according to Kathleen, junk or costume jewelry was perfectly appropriate. Think Ina Garten's store-bought is fine. She would say, it's not antique, but it's still fun. She also developed a clever build-your-own necklace business model during seasonal farmers markets, which had people lining down the street to participate. I was so taken with her philosophy of jewelry repair and repurposing that I began a bit of a barter deal with her. I would give her a bunch of broken jewelry to do with whatever she wants in exchange for repairing some of my own antique jewelry pieces. So here I will attempt a clumsy mixed metaphor to make a sophisticated point about Kathleen. I see a through line connecting Kathleen's work in history to her work with fixing broken things. The professional context in which I know Kathleen involves rediscovering stories of the past and caring for them for the future of our field and for future researchers and teachers. Then, in her joyful jewelry hustle with Mike, she took all the things that are broken and didn't necessarily make them exactly how they were before, but instead new and improved, yet in a way that the original beauty can still be on full display. She took the raw materials of a piece of archival history that may not be particularly useful in its current form. For instance, it's a manuscript fragment that needs a narrative thread. It needs a scholarly eye. It needs some fact-checking or another source or two to really come to life. This feels akin to her taking a broken necklace and restringing its beads instead of sending it to the landfill. In history, we know narratives can be re-examined and complicated, but not necessarily rewritten. Enemies of history do that, as we all know too well. Kathleen was a cheerleader of history as it truly happened. But what and who we choose to highlight in our history reflects our values and who we are. And in these joint contexts, the historian and the artisan, the writer and the crafter. In the context of Kathleen, this all makes so much sense. It is part of her narrative of community building through education and activism within her various communities, whether it be with scholars, librarians, teachers, textbook writers, playwrights, actors, political organizers, farmers market shoppers, or gardeners. I'm going to wrap up with a thought that aside from their work on educational writing and ultimately their work to make the Newberry Library more accessible to everyone, both Kathleen and Mac play an instrumental role in bringing important archival collections into the library for future research and for critical archival work like cataloging and preservation. Two of these collections were the Eunice Hunseth Militant photographs and the Prescott family papers. And I'm pleased to share that in her memory, we will develop a digital resource in tribute to Kathleen Thompson. This online essay will incorporate many of the historical narratives that she herself had a direct hand in unearthing, caring for, and advocating for their importance, and belonging permanently in a research library. In my small sphere of influence, I can promise that these stories reflecting Kathleen's legacy will live on. Thank you.
Thank you, Cara. I took that same literary top 100. They pegged me as Neely O'Hara from Valley of the Dolls. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage Judy Handler. And as Judy comes up, I have to tell you that Judy has known Kathleen for a long, long time. They used to collaborate on tunes. Judy's a wonderful guitar player and composer and lyricist, and she flew in from Hartford, Connecticut to be with us today, which is lovely. We're going to clear the way for her.
Well, I lived with Kathleen from 1974 to 1976. And we just remained great friends forever. I moved away after that to go to music school. But no matter how much time passed before we saw each other or spoke, we always just picked up wherever we left off. We always understood each other. She was one of my best friends ever. When we were looking for an apartment, Kathleen had yet another enterprise in mind that probably many of you never heard about. She wanted to open a batik store. And batik is a technique many of you probably know where you melt wax onto a piece of cloth and then you dye it. So it's kind of like tie-dye, but you're using hot wax. So I'm like, yeah, sure, a batik store, sure. So we found an apartment on Webster Street in Newtown that had a storefront. And I immediately got drawn into the very odious task of lifting off the entire linoleum floor because Kathleen had to have hardwood floors. So I got drawn into that and sanding and varnishing. And then when she opened the store, our apartment kind of became an extension of the store because it opened up into our kitchen. And she had a partner, Diane, who was always around. And we pretty much had like every sink and bathtub full of dye and cloth and shirts and, you know, it was just, it was kind of hard to take a shower there sometimes. And there were just a lot of people around. She was involved with Jim Schultz at that time. He was around a lot. And just lots of friends, and she had students. She was teaching batik. Again, I don't know if this was a very profitable enterprise. I don't remember that part. But she made some beautiful things. I had a shirt that I wore for years before it just kind of disintegrated. And so it was a very lively time there. But in the way back of the apartment, I had a little room, and I was studying classical guitar very seriously and practicing about 3, 4, 5 hours a day, probably. And Kathleen absolutely loved to hear me practice. And practicing isn't always that beautiful because you have a metronome going sometimes, or, you know. And maybe if I was playing like tuba or bagpipes, she might not have liked it. But classical guitar was kind of a gentle thing. And she just always said that she loved to hear somebody working at something creative while she was working at something creative. And she was either working on the batik stuff or she was writing, and she has told me for the rest of, you know, just forever how much she enjoyed hearing that music around. So I wanted to play a beautiful, very short piece that she would have heard me practicing back then. It's by a composer named Fernando Sor from the early 1800s. Thank you. Thank you. So since Kathleen grew up in Oklahoma, she liked country music. And I always felt like she was embarrassed about that. At least around me she was, maybe because I was studying classical music. So I would sometimes hear country music wafting through the door, closed door of her room. She had a little cassette recorder and some old cassettes, and I was completely unfamiliar with country music. I didn't really like it or not like it. I just never had listened to it. So a couple of years before we started living together, she bought an auto harp and just started writing songs. And we think she wrote about 30 songs. Michael has found a couple folders, and we need to like go through that more. And I, as a musician and someone who wrote songs myself, I was just amazed that she could sit down and write so many songs. And she sang and performed them with the auto harp. And I started singing some of her songs as well. I used to sing 5 or 6 of them, and sometimes we'd be on the same program together, playing for different groups or friends, and it was a great collaboration. Now, she did not write down the music, the actual melodies. She wrote down the lyrics and the chords, and there's only one that I actually remembered completely, and I want to finish by singing this song of hers. It clearly demonstrates her unsentimental side. It's called "How Can I Miss You When You Won't Go Away?" So, Kathleen. How can I miss you when you won't go away? I'd cry if you left me, but you always stay. I've got those I'm not missing you. You're not leaving me blues. How can I love you when you're always around? My heart would grow fonder if you got out of town. I've got those I'm not missing you. You're not leaving me blues. I wake every morning and your face I find. If you got out of my sight, I'd let you into my mind. I've got those I'm not missing you. You're not leaving me blues. I'm crazy about you, babe. You know that I am. Why don't you let me tell you all about it? By telegram, I've got those I'm not missing you. You're not leaving me. I'm not missing you. You're not leaving me blues.
Thank you so much, Judy. That was really fun. Really, really fun. That may have just become my wife's favorite song. Right, honey? You like that song? You love that song. Big 2 thumbs up. For 5 years, Kathleen, Michael, Mac, and many others, I think, in this room were part of a community garden called Green on McLean. Any other members of that garden here? Raise your hands if you were part of Green on McLean. Yeah, there's some Green on McLean power. Okay, and here as well. They started this community garden, on what was then a gang-controlled, drug-dealing corner. And believe it or not, the garden and the energy of the garden, the magic of that garden, chased the gangs away. How cool is that? I loved that story when Mike told it to me. Other people who were part of that garden, that marvelous project, are joining us on stage right now. I'd like to please welcome Emily Arroyo. Come on up, Emily.
Hello, everybody. I'm Emily. I grew up on that same block where we had the garden. I did not have anything written down, so I'm just going to be a Gen Z and just read what I wrote off my phone. I think the only best way that I could describe Kathleen was how I wrote about her on my Facebook post when I found out about her passing. And the only appropriate word that I could use to describe her was that she was a badass. Because she really was. She did so much more than so many people that I know from my community. And it's astounding to me that I was able to find out all this information just by watching her like as I was growing up, and then actually getting to interview her for my history fair project in high school, which I did win the award for. I actually do remember the first day that I met Kathleen. There was another guy on the block, his name was Deshaun. He would come hang out at my house along with some of my other friends, and he would tell me, hey, there's this lady across the block, like from your house, that's like giving away books to people in the neighborhood. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, like let's go see if she has any more books. So we immediately went right across the street, knocked on her door, and she was like, oh, hey guys, like how you doing? We immediately just snatched up all the books that we could get from her, and it had gotten to the point where my parents started telling me, okay, you gotta stop grabbing so many books from her, because you're starting to fill up your closet a little bit more. So I was like, okay. Oh, getting to interview her for high school was also very much an experience as someone who grew up as a woman and was learning more about my sexuality and me just being a woman in society. Getting to talk to her about all the things that she did for the LGBTQ plus community, for women, it was truly an eye-opening experience for me. And I would just hope to carry on some of those lessons and some of the things that she has done throughout my lifetime. I feel like there's still so much more work that we could do, but Kathleen was woke before woke was even a thing. And I don't know if there's anyone else from my neighborhood that's here today, but I just want at least all you guys to know that I will carry on all the lessons that she has taught me to like the day I die. I would hope to aspire to become somebody like her, somebody who is brave, who's courageous, who is innovative and creative, and truly just a badass in life. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. And now I'd like to welcome to the stage to present the final two poems today by Kathleen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Colleen Crimmins Rosen.
No root, no cash. Young Erica and Lewis are pulling out weeds. For each one they pull up with root intact, I will fork over 1 red cent. In a little more than 20 minutes' time, I will unfold $2 bills and coins, and Erica will jam them in her jeans and smile. A good job done. Our Lewis, on the other hand, will stand, look down at the dirt, as though his gaze could, by some hapless miracle, extract the dandelion from the bed. At last, he will bend and pluck, not pull, 1 clover stem. No root, no cash, I'll say. And Lewis, oh, he'll look hurt. And I will want to push his little face into the dirt. Funny. Very funny. The street was busy and the night air cold.
I and all the others on the walk walked past the wire trash bin where a careless cigarette had sparked a blaze. I pushed into the wind. I noticed you were gone and turned. You stood, slightly bent from the waist before the bin, striking a pose from some old film, your hands held up to the flame. The long scarf wound around your neck, whipped out across the wind. The wild brown curls, brushed cheeks, touched gold by firelight and flushed red with cold. I laughed, and you ran towards me, and you laughed. And the shoppers stared, and we laughed. Then you caught me in your arms. Thank you.
Wow. Those were beautiful. Wow. And now, ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in welcoming to the stage Kathleen's niece and nephews, Healy, Cooper, Spencer, and I believe Zach Thompson. Come on up. I think so.
The microphone might be too short, though.
We can raise it up. We can raise it up for sure. Let's get this thing up high. Is that about right? That's a little better anyway, right? That's a little better. That ought to do it. It's twisting.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Zach Thompson. Okay, I'll talk right into it. Maybe I won't look at everyone, I'm a bit stage shy. I want to say thank you for being here, for Kathy and for Michael as well. And to all my aunts, Sarah, Tracy, Kathy, Jan. We have beautiful, intelligent, strong women in our family that care deeply about not only us, but her second family and even strangers she doesn't know. I have early memories of Kathy. I still have Christmas ornaments that she helped make when I was a child. She always encouraged literacy of the mind and the heart. Thank you, everyone. Love you.
So my brilliant sister had this idea where she was like, Zach's going to talk about when we were little, and Cooper's going to talk about when we were teenagers, and I'm going to talk about when we were adults. And then I was like, I got here and I was like, holy shit. This entire room of people is like actors and speakers and singers and poets and writers. And I was like, I don't have anything to say to this group of people. So anyways, I'm going to talk about when we were teenagers. So Aunt Dean, as we called her, not Kathleen, Aunt Dean was a pretty consistent part of our lives because we lived here in Chicago. Not Zach, he lived in Oklahoma. But when we were growing up and my parents needed a break, they would send one of us kids with Aunt Dean to dinner. Like each month, they would be like, okay, it's your turn. And then the other one would take one of us, and the other one would take one of us. And Aunt Dean never bailed on those, and I would have, believe me. I have nieces and nephews now, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe you did that. But she did it very regularly, and it was always like, you're like, oh, well, it's my turn to go with Mom. Well, it's my turn to go with Dad. And then the other one got to be like, yeah, well, it's my turn to go with Aunt Dean. That was the bright spot. Aunt Dean introduced me to a lot of really interesting people. First and foremost, Jim and Mac, and getting to see them last night was really special. We all miss Aunt Dean, obviously, but like for me, the people she brought into my life was a really important and special part of who she was that, like, you can look around the room and there's the widest range of people here. Like, it's just like a hodgepodge of like, kind of like the most interesting and strangest people in the world. But the story I was gonna tell is, when I was in high school, I got kicked out of high school, and then I went to a different high school, and I got kicked out of that high school. And my parents were like, what the heck are we gonna do with you? And Dean was like, don't worry, he can come over to my house every day when he should be at school, and I'm gonna tutor him. And I was like, oh shit, that's gonna suck. But it didn't suck. She taught me some writing. She'd give me writing exercises, and she'd be like, write a page about this, or write a page about that. And I was like, okay. And then she taught me how to code in like C++. Not that I remember any of it, but, and she would let me sit in the big old like 1800s wheelchair they used to have. Do you remember that wheelchair? And just like, I guess, kind of keep me out of trouble. And so as I got older, Dean was always like, you know, everybody says, Aunt Dean was the smartest person in the world and the smartest person in every room she was in. And what she didn't realize was that I was actually the smartest person in every room that we were in. And so as I got older, we would just argue and argue and argue. I mean, we argued so much, like so many Thanksgiving dinners were just like consumed by me and Aunt Dean arguing. And it wasn't until like I got a lot older that I realized, I was like, oh shit, maybe she was the smartest. But anyways, I was really lucky. I got to see Dean on Thanksgiving, this most recent Thanksgiving. And I got to spend a couple hours talking to her, or maybe an hour talking to her and Michael. And it was really special because before we knew it, she was gone. But like Zach said, I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm sorry for not making eye contact. I'm really bad at that. But yeah, thank you. And Earl, I'll miss you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Healy, or as Aunt Dean knew me, Bean, a nickname she gave me and that only she and Jim ever used. And until last night when I saw you again, Jim, I've been thinking about the fact no one's ever going to call me Bean again. So the torch has been passed. Like so many of us, I was still in the middle of conversations with my Aunt Dean when things took their final turn for the worst. Had just realized that she and my Aunt Tracy had been talking about an Ann Patchett book on a Zoom call, and I read that book and I thought it was great, and I realized another place to turn for book recommendations. I just started writing her emails where I decided to be funny, and instead of signing it Bean, I would sign it like Green or Kidney or Garbanzo. But I didn't get to send enough of those emails. Anyway, I could tell a million stories from our childhood, and I'm happy to tell those if anyone wants to hear those after when you have more chocolate cake in hand. But as Cooper said, my brilliant idea is that I'm going to talk about our life as adults and our aunt's influence kind of as that. And I think the place that I need to start, though, is how she influenced me throughout my life. As you know, and as the stories today have told, Aunt Dean was, a social justice warrior. So I got to grow up with my parents, my dad, Paul, Kathleen's sister, and my mom, Jan, Kathleen's brother, and my mom, Jan, who were also huge social justice influences. And then I also had my Aunt Dean and Michael. And I've made a career for myself in activism and in doing social justice work. And she's really shaped a lot of who I am. And another way in which she shaped that is, I know we've talked today about almost everyone who's spoken, or actually everyone who's spoken, I believe, knows Kathleen from after she moved to Chicago. But she grew up in Oklahoma in this amazing family, this incredible sibling group, my Aunt Tracy, then my Aunt Dean, my dad, Paul, my Uncle Mike, and my Aunt Sarah, who unfortunately passed a number of years ago. And they gave each other heck, as siblings do. I've heard many a story. No one's claiming Kathleen was a saint, but if you'd heard some of these stories, you definitely wouldn't claim it. But they also really shaped who they all were. And I think, as Zach mentioned, we have a lot of strong women in our family. And because we have a lot of strong women in our family, we have a lot of incredible men in our family. And it was largely, I think, and Dad, maybe you deserve all the credit yourself, but I think Aunt Dean and my dad's other sisters really helped make him someone who could handle and be worthy of my mom. So I got to grow up with an incredible dad, an incredible mom, and an incredible aunt, and Aunt Dean played a key role in all of those things. When I was in college, I took a philosophy class, a moral and political philosophy class, and we read this philosopher who was making this argument that to be good people, what we should do is give away everything in our lives, and that the only way to be a good person was to do this. For him, it was a philosophical exercise, but for me, as a 19-year-old social justice person who wanted to do right in the world, I came home at Thanksgiving just in emotional, moral crisis about what I should do, and I sat down with my Aunt Dean, and she helped me think through that and think through ideas of balance and how we can do these things. And I don't remember the specific conversation, but I keep coming back to that as I kind of find these various crises in my life. And the final thing that I just wanted to say was that, Aunt Dean was a person of many contradictions, beautiful contradictions. She was someone who, said, just because it's used doesn't mean it's bad. Costume jewelry is great, all these stories we've heard. And then when my wife and I got engaged, despite Kathleen's own views on marriage, she took us out for high tea in downtown Chicago to celebrate, because you can kind of have this balance where you don't live that life of high tea. You yourself don't believe in the institution of marriage, but you see a moment to celebrate. And I think that she's also helped me in my life kind of sit with some of those messy contradictions and not have to find one singular answer, but just kind of be someone in the world, and that ultimately the relationships are what matter. So again, I don't know how to end things. Thank you all for being here.